We'll start the Sewer and Water Commissioner meeting of Monday, November 9th. Is there anyone here for Commissioner's Public Forum? Hearing none. We want to go right to Paul. What do you have for us this evening, Paul?
Good evening, everyone. I would first like to make a motion to approve the warrants as written for 10/19/2020.
We have a second.
Second
You meant
from
the minutes, Paul, right?
Paul, did you mean minutes instead of warrants?
Yeah, well, did I say warrants?
Yes.
Let me stand corrected then. I definitely meant minutes.
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Cantwell. Hearing any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote.
Mr. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Donahue,
Aye.
Mr. Gagner, Mr. Cantwell,
Aye.
and Mr. Jennings.
Aye. All right, what's next, Paul?
Okay. Next, I would like to approve a motion for the warrants. As written, first of all, we have commissioner salary, $300. And then we've got a bunch of them for Veolia. The emergency services, September 2020, for Glen Echo Pump Station, $686.24. And another one for lab testing, $184. Then Glen Echo Float Relay, $309.19. Then a generator switch install, $256.83. And the generator switch, $205.46. And the generator cord, $264.29. The PAC pilot study, $5,633.45. And repairs to the town truck, $2,419.52. And Veolia again for second impeller for the EQ pumps, $933.90. And the last one for Veolia, October 2020 monthly services, $40,850.32. Next, we've got WB Mason for office supplies. The first one is $4.38. The next one is $3.78. And the last one to WB Mason for office supplies is $25.55. Then we have Beta for services performed 8/29 to 10/2, $17,353.62. And then from 10/2 to 10/23, $36,706.69. And in the town of Charlton, the Board of Selectmen for electricity, $14,061.90. That is for July and August of 2020. And McClure Engineering for waterline construction, $1,428.75. And then Pioppi Construction for waterline repair, July 28th and 9th, $35,551.25. And another one for Pioppi for waterline repair, August 21st, $16,748.75. The grand total of which is $173,926.87.
Do we have a second? Do we have a second?
Second, Phil.
Thank you, Phil. Discussion.
Sue, does that include the fact that I'm not taking the stipend anymore?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That would make it 300 instead of 400. Correct?
Yes.
Correct. What's Pioppi on the waterline construction? Was that Route 20?
That is. And I also have I have a question concerning in just a general question, and let's just say if it did so relate to POP construction, let's say that one of the amounts I was not in agreement with, but we're going to be discussing that at a later point in time in the meeting. If we vote to approve this, does that mean that we are in fact voting to approve the payment as well? Or are we just voting to requisition the money and not actually pay it at this point in time? You
No.
understand what my question is, Pete?
Yes, you would be voting to pay it at this time.
We
So if
would
you-
be?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you want to have that discussion, now would be the time to do that.
Okay. So there are 2 invoices from Piapi Construction on there, and they concern one, an emergency repair. That
Correct.
would be the $37,000 one.
Yep.
And then the second one is actually a job that we had given to Jake Morse. Correct, Peter?
Yes, well, yeah, I ended up meeting with both Jake and Piapi out there at different times.
Okay.
We did get a quote from Jake Morse for day rate and to do the work for us. And I'm not sure where Piapi came in, but Piapi was also there working with Jake at the same time.
Well, I'd like to lay out the story for the commission as I see it. We had discussed with the commission the fact that potentially after the emergency repair was done, and we knew that there was one other problem, we assumed that there would be potentially other problems with the line that is not being used currently. We knew that there was one because it blew out during testing and it bubbled up in the middle of Route 20. So we said, well, we have to start there and we have to get that fixed regardless of anything else. Trying to look further down the road and say, well, maybe this could be one of many situations. I asked Peter to get a day rate from Jim Piapi, and I would get one from Jake Morse, which is attached. And that would be a day rate that would show how much we were going to have to pay. So we would know a figure. So we could say, hey, I want you guys to come and work. And okay, maybe you're not going to get it done in a day. It's going to take 2 days, whatever. Here's a rate for a day's worth of work. And I felt that was a fair way to tackle a problem that we weren't quite sure what we were getting into time-wise. So everything was fine. Jake said he'd love to do the job, love to do the work. Jimmy would not provide that to Peter, or did not provide a day rate to Peter after being requested to do so. So,
Question, did he give you a rate, Jake?
yes, it's attached.
The 165
It's
per
attached
hour?
in our paperwork is what Jake gave us as his day rate. If you
That's the
look through your
160.
package.
Yeah, it's the 165 per hour,
No,
No,
No.
it's 3,500 a day.
3,500 a day. Okay, I don't see that. Okay, I have to go down lower.
it's
Sorry.
further down.
So upon talking with Jake and getting this, I brought the information forth to you guys and received the go-ahead from you guys to hire Jake to start doing the work. The week that Jake was going to start doing the work, he told me that he would in fact like to do the job at night. So I said, that's fine. I don't care if you do the job during the day or do the job at night. Later in that same week, when we were approaching the actual day he was going to do the job, he said, I'm going to do the job with Jimmy, meaning Jimmy Piapi. And again, I said, doesn't really matter if you want to call your Uncle Ed and do the job with him. I really don't care. It doesn't matter as long as Jake is the person doing the job. That's who we basically gave the job to. Now we're receiving a invoice from Jimmy Pioppi. And I don't understand why we would be receiving one from Jim. It should be coming from Jake. And that's my overall take on the situation. So
Russ, my question is, who gave Jake the job? Did you call Jake and give him the job?
yes,
Then I don't know why we're getting a bill from. I don't know why we're getting a bill from Pioppi. There's not really much to discuss. If we got a quote from Jake, and you called Jake and gave him the job, then Jake should send us a bill.
Question, does this have anything to do with the fact that Southbridge actually handles the water and they might have overridden us?
definitely not on this one, Phil. And that's why the first bill from Mr. Pioppi, I believe, is extremely high.
Yeah,
I think that it's an astronomical price that he is asking the town of Charlton to pay, and it's the mini dig, and I think it's an outrageous number. I'm in this line of work, I'm in this field, and there's, unfortunately, I don't know what we can do about the price tag because this was ordered by Southbridge, and moving forward, I'd like to see a different policy when work is actually taking place so that we have more control over handling who's going to do the job, because ultimately we're going to pay for the job. So this is not only a discussion of this job itself, but moving forward, what we should be doing a little bit differently.
So are you questioning the 16,748.75 because that's the second bill, or you're questioning both based on the high rate on the first one?
Well, again, on the first one, I don't know. I don't know where our place is to say something. It's a really odd spot, and it's a very difficult position for us to question a bill that Southbridge gave someone to go ahead to do open-endedly.
Right.
Southbridge hired Jimmy Pioppi, basically told him they want him to come in and do the job. He came in and did the job. There were no restrictions. There was no questioning. There was no, how much is this going to be? What are you going to supply for equipment? Give me your day rate so we know in advance what to expect. And, that's it. Don't get me wrong. Mr. Pioppi does exceptional work. I've never found fault in his work. I just find fault in the price tag associated with it on this job.
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes, Peter.
the first repair happened on the active portion of the water line. And when that leak took place, because Southbridge operates the system and we didn't have anyone on hand or on call to come and make the repairs, they called Pioppi to get that repair done immediately, because we were fortunate on that portion of the line. There was only one customer who was out of water during that time frame, and they had to close during the day when this happened. But that's why Southbridge took care of that problem. Now, moving forward, if we can show that we have contractors on call to make these repairs when this happens in the future on any part of the line, whether it's the active portion or inactive portion, we can just tell Southbridge to let us know what the problem is, and we will go ahead and make the repairs on our own with our own contractors. The second repair wasn't as much of a rush, so we did have time to solicit prices from Mr. Morse. And again, I met with Jake out there, and I also met with Jimmy Pioppi. And I wasn't sure really why they were doing it together. As you said, Mr. Jennings, you awarded the job to Jake Morse, but when they showed up to do the job that night, they both showed up and they worked well together to get it done. And then we got the invoice from Pioppi. And that repair wasn't really under the gun per se, but it was a time-sensitive repair because they were in the process of repaving Route 20, and we had to go ahead and get this repair done before they paved the road also. So there was a little bit of an underlying factor of needing to, it was time-sensitive to get that second repair done as well before the road
So Russ, what's your expectation that we have somebody that we can put together for on-call in case we go down again?
Absolutely. Moving forward, whatever the rate is that someone provides the town with to move forward with, that's what I would expect to pay once we receive a bill. And can we get people to price this out for us? Well, maybe they're interested, maybe they're not. But I guess I think I would like to see that happen for us to try and solicit bids to do this kind of work, so we can pick up the phone, as Peter stated, and said, don't worry, Southbridge, we've got our contractor on speed dial. We're going to call him. He'll be here. And, these people will show up and do what needs to be done at an expected cost. So we're not sitting around afterwards saying, oh, gee, this is ridiculous. And what are we going to do? We just got to pay it,
I think I mentioned this maybe 6 months or a year ago about going out to bid various work hourly, get hourly rates for a different type of equipment. Because we also have, the sewer lines and everything else that we need to maintain. And in case of an emergency, we need to have somebody on call, one that we can trust and that we've worked with before, and that is willing to come in the emergency situation, to also know what they're getting involved in as well. So I will, if the commission wants, I will start the legwork to begin that RFP process, or request proposals or request quotes for what that day rate or hourly rate might be for that type of work, so that we can award that type of contract for, say, a 3-year term.
Peter, what's the organization? Is it Albanese Brothers? That might be something worth looking into.
Yes and no. We asked them to do this second repair. We asked them to do both repairs on Route 20, and they weren't interested. So
I have a question, Peter. You're talking about getting these quotes. Isn't that kind of what we got from Mr. Morse here on August 3rd?
Yes, but I'm just talking moving forward. Moving forward, it's cleaner. So in an emergency situation, or like I said, if we have a sewer line issue on Old Worcester Road that breaks and we need someone in there today to fix it, we just make the phone call to XY Construction. They come out and fix it. And next week, if we have a water line problem on Route 20, we call XY Construction, they come out and they fix it. If we need help at a pump station, we call XY Construction and they come do what they have to do.
I'll give you a hand with all of that stuff, Peter.
Yeah.
Seeing as how that's definitely my area. So
so I agree with what Mr. Jennings saying, and I think it's a good idea for us to move forward down that path. As far as what to do, if the board wants to hold the second Piapi construction for the repair on August 21st, for me to do some more research and maybe I'll talk to Russ and we can go meet with Mr. Morse and Mr. Piapi and try and iron this out. We can just amend the motion that was made to approve the warrant to remove that second Piapi bill of $16,748.75 and approve the rest of them.
Peter, what was the original quote from the competitor?
Their day rate was $3,500 per day for equipment. It was a real clean. It was a full day with crew and equipment of $3,500.
And
I believe the job took approximately 14 hours.
So the difference in pricing would be approximately about
8,000, 9,000 if they charge you 2 full days.
Yeah.
Unless he charged you for more than one crew. So, I mean, again, Jake Morse's estimate has quite a bit of equipment here on it, and it doesn't really iron out how big his crew is. It just says 1 day and a full day with crew and equipment. It doesn't say whether that's 2 crew and 2 pieces of equipment or what. So,
well, it looks like they give you a breakdown of how many hours per person.
Well, I think it boils down to as simple as it doesn't really matter to me how many people you bring to do a job that requires X number of people to do it. Whatever the price is that you give, knowing the scope of work, he knew what the scope of work was, being dig up that piece of pipe, that section of pipe, cut out a section of pipe, and put in a solid sleeve or repair. Basically, that's what we had originally talked about doing, and potentially we even talked about putting in a gate valve at that point in time, which is really not that much more work than a solid sleeve. So knowing the water business the way I do, that's what I do. I do water repairs. You say how much for your crew to do a day's worth of work, and okay, if it takes 1.5 days, then multiplied by the rate. It's very simple. So if you said it took 12 hours, a day and a half, we know what that is. So I don't want to be fooled into, well, this costs more money, because I'm sorry, you provided us with a rate, and what's the problem now?
I agree with you, Russ. The only question I have is our relationship with Southbridge and whether that makes any difference.
Absolutely not. No effect on that relationship.
Okay.
Southbridge wasn't involved in this repair one bit because it is part of the inactive water line.
Then I agree with Russ that we should question the bill.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the warrants, removing the $16,748.75 that was supposed to be paid to Piapi. And let's wait to get a bill from the company that we actually hired to do the job.
Second the motion.
So there's a motion on the floor. Mr. Cantwell, that was an amendment, correct? That was a motion to amend the main motion?
Correct.
And you got a second from me, Peter.
All right, thank you. So, Mr. Chair, you have to take two votes. The first is whether or not to amend the motion, and then another vote to approve the amended motion.
All right. Well, let's take a roll call vote on the amended motion, on amending the motion.
Okay, Mr. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Cantwell,
Aye.
Mr. Donahue,
Aye.
Mr. Jennings.
Aye.
All right, that motion passes unanimously, so the motion has been amended the motion will be to amend the warrant as stated without the second Piapi construction repair.
And now the motion on the main motion. Roll call vote on that.
Okay, Mr. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Donahue,
Aye.
Mr. Cantwell,
Aye.
and Mr. Jennings.
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
Very good. Is that all you have for us tonight, Paul?
That's all I've got. Yep.
All right. Very good. Thank you, sir. All right. Next, we have Viola.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? This is John Oatley.
Hey,
Hey,
John.
John.
Oh, good. I wasn't sure if my microphone was working. Hey, Pete, on that note, I can share with you, it's very common, in fact, for a lot of our other clients to do a similar thing with getting a company on an annual basis pricing for equipment, manpower, emergency response, et cetera. So if you need any help with that, I can certainly, lend some support to you.
Yeah, if you could provide a template that shows what type of services you're getting in other communities, that'd be great.
Yeah, I can absolutely take care of that for you. It's usually, it's almost always handled directly by the town, but I can share with you what their bid specs look like and how that all gets awarded.
That'd be great. Thank you.
And in fact, in Rhode Island, the way it typically works, if one community does that sort of bidding process, other communities have the ability to utilize the same contract at the same price as well. So,
That would make it too easy.
yeah. All right, well, thanks. Good evening, everyone. Again, this is John Oatley with Veolia. Pete, I think the first thing on the agenda is the SCADA.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So first of all, I apologize to the board not having a formal proposal to have in front of you this evening. We did get a little bit slowed down in our due diligence over the last few weeks. I can't tell you that I'm currently looking at the final draft of the proposal. So I'm confident I should be able to get it through our risk review and present to the board by our next meeting, if not sooner. But some of the delay has been when we brought our teams out there. It became apparent that because of the way the original configuration or the current configuration is with a high voltage and the PLCs are within the same cabinet, it became much more challenging in how we would stage the upgrade. By that, I mean, we would need and are going to need to shut the plant down for several times and for a significant amount of time to affect the replacement. Our integrator can't work inside a live panel with high voltage in it. So that represents a number of challenges. And those challenges we can overcome, but the challenges are that we'll have to shut the plant down. We're probably likely going to have to work during off hours in the wee hours of the night during low flow periods so that we can keep the cost down in terms of what we would need to do to work inside that panel without power. But right now, we're looking at a couple options to present to the board. One is for the complete rehabilitation and retrofit for all the PLCs in the MCC cabinet. But our plan would be to install a brand new cabinet, which would then segregate the PLC controllers and out of that high voltage panel into a separate panel so that anytime in the future, if any work had to be done inside that cabinet, it would not require working or shutting the plant down. They could work safely within a low voltage panel as opposed to in a high voltage panel. And then the second option would be to, as we had discussed, include as part of that a new Windows 10 SCADA computer in the administrative office to provide full redundancy as well as remote access without having to run down into the lab for that second. I did share with Peter that the proposal will also include a contingency that will be available if we don't need it to the commission to provide for some of the other things that potentially we may want to include. And there'll also be a provision in that proposal for utilizing a septic hall in the event that we can't contain all the flow during those hours to bring as septage to a neighboring facility. So there's a couple contingencies that we're going to need to include in the final price, but if not needed, that could then be used for other things as well. And we're also very confident that we're going to be able to do all of this, below the budgeted amount that we had been discussing. So again, I apologize that I don't have the formal proposal in front of you, but we needed to do some serious discussions about how we could actually implement this upgrade, given again the challenges that we're going to be faced with trying to do it.
John, I have a question or two.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, and raise this with Peter, but I'm going to directly ask you. So we have two cabinets there, okay, that have the SCADA units and the high voltage in them. Why can't we bring the high voltage to the right and left sides of those cabinets in sub panels? That could be done in one night's work, okay, with conduits coming out the side instead of adding. There's no room for a third panel, third cabinet in there, really.
I can certainly take that back to the team. So what you're suggesting is instead of moving the PLC controllers out of the high voltage cabinet, move the high voltage out of that cabinet?
Yeah, and put them on the sides of the cabinet, to the right side and the left side. There's plenty of room to things. There's only 6 lines coming in.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the motor, let's see, I'm reading some of the scope right here, which is much more detailed than
The six lines in those two cabinets that are high voltage.
I will definitely take that back to the team and get an answer to your question. I'm not prepared to answer it myself right now. It's
No, of course
that's
not.
team.
But you see, just by bringing those panels out, then what happens is you're down for one night, okay, for 5 hours,
Right.
and you save a lot of money with just bringing the high voltage lines and conduit out.
So move the high voltage out of the cabinet and do it on the, I'm just writing down the question. And move the high voltage out of cabinet and relocate to the side of it in like
Yeah.
some sort of separate.
You got the
file.
right side and the left side of the two cabinets that are freely open. It's not going to be that pretty, mind you, but it's going to be a hell of a lot cheaper than trying to put a third cabinet where there's no room, or trying to bring each of those individual wires from one cabinet into the other. So one's a high voltage and one's a low voltage.
Okay, I will bring that question back to the team. I know. I'm just trying to read while I'm
And there is 6 high voltage lines that we're thinking of, but there's probably 30 or 40 high voltage circuits in each of those cabinets. That whole bottom of the MCC cabinet 2,
Yep.
5 feet long of motor starters. There's a lot of high voltage stuff in that cabinet. It's not just the main wires that they're concerned with. It's anything.
Okay, I see what you're getting at. But do you have room to bring those to another cabinet?
I don't know. That's a lot of stuff. What Matt was talking about doing is putting a third cabinet in the maintenance shop, so it's back to back, and then pulling the wiring through the wall through a short conduit.
I see what you're talking about. Okay, and I could see the other option, which is just, mounting some of them on the sides, or putting you get about 2 feet on the right side there. That's about it.
I'm going to
Putting
have an electrician out here pretty soon to replace one of the VFDs that burnt up. And I'll ask him about the feasibility about moving that high voltage stuff and if it's something that can be done reasonably.
Yeah, I mean, because, moving high voltage, if you start moving each of one of those wires on the PLCs over, you're talking 200 wires. You know as well as I do that crimps don't do as well as solder.
Oh,
And
definitely. Yeah, there's
soldering those 200 or 300 wires and bringing them over to another cabinet and separating them out is like, you might as well just, call it a day, because you're going to be in there for 3 or 4 days just to do the solders.
right. Yeah,
No, it's a fair question, and it's certainly one we'll answer. We certainly want to. I don't know if I wasn't. Unfortunately, I wasn't there at the. And Matt Johnson, our lead for our construction program management group, will be on the next call to discuss the proposal in its final form. But it's a valid question. We'll get an answer to it as well, and we're certainly looking to do it both the safest way, the most cost-effective way, and also the way that positions you in the future to not have to deal with this again. So, those are our three, three positions we're trying to address. So,
I think most of that high voltage could be brought out to the left and the right side of the cabinets. If not, you got about 2 feet. You put a sub cabinet in on the right side, and that's about it. Other than that, you don't have room to put a third cabinet in there. I mean, you run the wires, like this said, but to run those wires around, you're then losing the control system in one place.
Yeah, I think the idea initially was to just replace, the PLCs where they exist. But yeah, with the high voltage, it did change that calculus. But we'll need to move one or the other, and we'll definitely see which is the best way to go. So.
Yeah, the only other thing I mentioned to Peter and Vinny when I was out there was that the problem with some of those things, especially like the new shed, is we don't have any thermostatic control of understanding what the temperature in those buildings are, and if they overheat, we're going to overheat the PLCs,
right.
And especially in the new Comeg shed. We need to get some temperature sensors in there and added to the main lines so that it shows up and it will trigger a warning in case we overheat.
Yeah,
Because
I
just
think
a simple
you're
fan going
absolutely right.
down can cause us, the whole plant to go down.
Yep, no, you're absolutely right. That temperature, particularly on VFDs, is critical. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, okay. We perhaps we can even have them address that as part of this. Well, I don't know how that that grant is working, but you know, if it's not part of that, you know, perhaps we could take a look at what we could do as part of this as well. But I'll have them look at that thermostat control in those new new sheds. So.
Yeah, also the existing PLC cabinets, you know, with the high
Ones in the
voltage. I
lab.
mean, because, you know, there's no, actually, there's absolutely no temperature control on either of those.
Yeah.
Well, very good. Thank you, John, for the update.
Right. Again, I do apologize. I would like to have had it for you, but you know, we definitely want to make sure we've got everything squared away before we're ready to speak with you. So
Understandable. We'll slot you in on the next agenda.
appreciate that. I think the next agenda item, Peter, was the SCADA. I mean, not the SCADA. I apologize. The zinc
Yes.
pilot test.
Yep.
So I provided Peter with a what I would call a final report going all the way to the end of October with respect to where we have landed and where we are currently with the pilot study. It includes an updated chart with the most recent data. And so just, you know, I would encourage you to read the report. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them when you've had a chance to do it. But, you know, basically in a nutshell, where we're at is we're effectively moving zinc below the permit limit. We're also seeing increased removal of copper. I think we've talked about that in the past. We are currently driving the aluminum level down. We had talked about how we held the aluminum pretty steady throughout the pilot, looking at trying to optimize the sulfide dose. I think at our last meeting, I discussed, we felt fairly confident that 4 ppm range for the sulfide was where we found our best results. So we've arrived back on that. Now we're driving the aluminum down. On the 16th, we went from 140 to 130. Then again, we dropped to 120 on the 21st of October. And then I could share with you the result. The most recent result at the 120 ppmv for aluminum had us at about 137 micrograms against a permit limit of 93, which isn't where we need to be, but it's definitely trending in the right direction for aluminum. Vinny made another adjustment today. You went to 115, correct, Vinny? Yep. Again, what we're looking at and what we're evaluating is now the turbidity to make sure that the turbidity doesn't get impacted by driving the coagulant, the aluminum, down. Because as we know, any particle that gets carried over into the effluent has the opportunity to not only contain phosphorus, but also metals. And once it's acidified, we'll be releasing them back into solution and measuring them as zinc or any other metal that might be contained within that total suspended particle. So again, we're feeling really confident that we have zinc managed, copper managed, but again, the real proof will be if we can drive the coagulant of aluminum down low enough to maintain that 93 monthly average. Again, we do have a very high daily average for aluminum. It's close to 900. I think it's 883. Correct me if I'm wrong, Vinny.
803.
803. So they give you a lot of room for daily value of aluminum, but again, we really need to worry about the monthly average. And again, the most recent sample puts us about 40 parts per million above it. But we'll continue to drive the aluminum down and to continue to monitor turbidity and aluminum level as we do. So that's kind of a summary of what the report says for the plant. I also included a review of the pump station work that we've done, the sampling, interestingly enough, when we went through the data, we began to look particularly at the North Main Street pump station and all the tributaries into that station. We do believe there may be an opportunity to try to drive some of the dissolved zinc that is coming into that station and exiting that station to the treatment plant. We sent out a couple samples late October, early November. I forget what the exact date, Vinny.
It was October 27th.
To determine what percent of the zinc that we measuring out of that pump station is in dissolved form, therefore being able to be targeted for a sulfide addition. And just based on some, just some math, we believe there's likely about a 25% removal opportunity or conversion opportunity, if you will, at that pump station to reduce the loading into the headworks of the plant for dissolved zinc. And then it would then be, if it remained in non-soluble form, it would either be trapped in the sludge or removed in the COMAG system ahead of the current sulfide addition. And basically what it might mean is we would need to use less sulfide at the COMAG process, which we all know is although it's working, the less we use there, the better overall for the treatment plant itself. So we'd like, with the board's concurrence, to continue to evaluate the North Main Street pump station as a possible opportunity to drive some of the additional zinc load down to the headworks of the plant.
So John, the question there is, okay, what's the cost of doing that in the plant versus, as a pretreatment? What do you think?
It would be fairly insignificant due to the low dosage required of the sulfide. I think logistically, to me, it's a greater concern. How can we, store the chemical, apply the chemical, et cetera? But the plant average flow, given the plant average flow, you're adding what, Vinny, about 2 gallons a day?
If that, it's very little.
My concern there is, how do you safeguard that from, some kid climbing over the fence and
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I that's why I said I think the challenge there is logistics, not so much expense as far as chemical addition. I'm not prepared tonight to tell you, it's something we should do. We want to continue to evaluate it if the commission thinks it's worth our time to spend doing so.
Personally, I think you need to focus on the overall plant versus the one thing and adding sulfide there, because I think that, you get a more resolute understanding plant wide, even though that area has been a problem. I'd rather see us chase the source than chase the solution.
Understood. Yeah, we definitely have looked at the contributing flows into that station, Old Worcester Road and the what is it, the gate
Masonic
portion
Home.
of the Masonic Home, as showing higher levels of zinc concentrations, all contributing into North Main Street.
Which would be understandable because of Masonic, even though the levels were pretty low coming out of those tests. But, there's a potential for zinc right there because of all the zinc products used on the elderly.
Now, Phil, it's not about just trying to remove the treatment from the plant. If we can get it into a particle at that point, we can capture it and strip it out of the water stream before it even gets to our.
No, I think his point, Vinny, was less about finding another chemical additions point, but really focusing on, can we remove it at the source, i.e. going to the Masonic Home, wherever that we can identify the source and seeing if they can eliminate it, if I understand you correctly, Phil.
Yeah, I understand that. Probably not impossible. Probably next to impossible in a nursing home, because zinc products are what's
Everywhere.
used, period. Okay, I'm a nurse, so that's what's used, period.
Yeah, it's for the same reason they want to take it out of the receiving water, right?
Yeah, that's why I'm wondering if we shouldn't, look again more closely at the Masonic and see if that site, which would be much more easier to secure than some site,
I see
a
what
little
you're
bit
saying,
off.
as a possible application point, you mean?
Yeah,
I
because,
see.
you
Okay,
know,
I misunderstood you. I
we,
see.
we, yeah, because I mean, they're a much more secure site than, you know, just out in the middle of nowhere.
Okay, yeah, I misunderstood your point, so I apologize. Yeah, no, I mean, we can certainly do that. I don't disagree that, you know, like I said, for my concern, it's less about the expense of the chemical and more about the application and how we would do it safely and securely. So I agree with you there. So with that direction, Vinny and I could certainly spend some time looking at that potentially.
Yeah, I just was thinking that, leaving a sulfide barrel of 55 gallons sitting out there someplace is like asking
Yeah,
for.
no, we absolutely would not want to recommend that either. So no.
Yeah, you got where I come from. That's
You
all I
do.
was trying to point out.
So again, I feel, fairly confident that we can control zinc levels at the plant, but whether or not we can drive the aluminum coagulant down low enough to get within that 93 threshold, I think we should have a better idea for the commission by our next meeting. And at that point, if we feel as though, we've gone as far as we can go, then we'll likely have to make a decision to suspend the pilot and then begin going back to the ferric chloride addition, and then have to come up with another discussion point for the EPA on how we might address zinc.
John, when can we take this information and data and present it to DEP and the EPA and ask for them to increase our aluminum discharge limit?
Well, I think we certainly could give them an update, which is what this report tries to do, of kind of where we're at. I think that is perfectly, we can do that at any time. But we're continuing to drive the aluminum down. So I wouldn't be at a point to tell you now just when we've reached that endpoint. I think we'll reach that endpoint within a few weeks. Our goal is to not violate aluminum in November, so we're continuing to drive it. Like I said, Vinny made another adjustment today. We'll have those results probably by the end of the week, and then evaluate making another adjustment from there.
So when's the report due, actually?
They really didn't say. There was a date. What they said was that by November 1st, they wanted the town to be in compliance, basically, which includes compliance for aluminum, which is what we're currently driving towards. We're in compliance for zinc, we're in compliance for copper, we're in compliance for all other metals and everything else. It's just right now we're at the aluminum, we're driving the aluminum.
So what happens, John, if we're not in compliance? What's the outcome of that? What do they do? They're not going to shut us down.
Well, I think as long as we're demonstrating, good faith efforts, which we have been, they'll look for us to come back to them with what's plan B, and I don't think anyone at this level has a plan B, because
could plan B be to have them raise the limits?
Well, I think that's ideal. The ideal situation is for them to recognize that 93 aluminum would likely need to increase to the benefit of every other metal that we're removing. And
All in favor of Plan B.
Yeah. Well, we could present them with later at that point how far when we've gotten to the end. I think that would be the point at which we would petition them to arrive at a new limit.
So the bottom line is, when are we putting this report out that we just had put forth?
From my perspective, I would be comfortable sending it out as written, provided everyone has a chance to edit it and review it, as just an update to the EPA in response to the NOV, with the caveat that we're continuing to drive the aluminum down, and supplemental information will be provided.
Part of that, John, can we request for a raise in the level of aluminum?
I think we could certainly ask them to continue what they had done for us as part of this administrative order period of time, is they waived the aluminum limit during this time. So I think we could certainly ask them as part of that to continue to allow us to drive the aluminum down and give us a period of time to do that. I think that would be a good option for us, particularly as we present them with the amount of effort that we've been exerting over the past three months.
Yeah, so the chart that was put out by Viola didn't include flow rates, okay, and it included the car wash without flow rates, which really sort of makes them stand out like.
Yeah, I actually do. I apologize. I do have the chart for flow rates. I didn't include it on this one. That was an error on my part.
Okay, yeah, I just think that just
Yeah.
made it so that it was like put somebody out there that shouldn't be put out there. It's not business friendly.
No, I apologize. The previous report did have that second chart which showed flow rate and converted into pounds. For a reason I don't have a good reason why I didn't include it in this one, but I will include it in the final.
We added those two dates, the 26th or 27th, 28th into the chart so that some of the data got extended out.
Yeah, it might get pushed out, but yeah, I'll make sure that I'll send that out to you tomorrow, Peter, which will include that second chart which shows all the flow rates.
I appreciate that from the standpoint of like the business people here in town. They don't want to be singled out.
Understood.
Probably shouldn't even include that because they demolished that whole car wash and they're putting a new one in, which is going to treat the process totally different.
Oh, really? Oh, that's news to me.
Yeah, the whole car wash got torn out last week.
Yeah, I saw all the new equipment in there.
Oh.
Yeah. So,
well, we should probably ask them what type of materials. I know that the concern is that it's washing off the bottom of cars and stuff, but we should also take a look at what soaps and products they might be introducing as part of their new system. Make sure they're not zinc or phosphate based. It might be worth asking.
Yeah, definitely.
We can request MSDS sheets for all the chemicals. John, in this letter moving forward, if we are going to ask for them to waive the aluminum limit, can we tie that into them issuing us a new NIPDES permit and kind of caveat the fact that we don't want to start looking at doing improvements to the plant as far as treatment processes go until we get our new NIPDES permit, so we know if there are other processes we have to evaluate at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly request at least, what if any guidance they have in terms of what the new permit may contain for limits. I think we discussed this before. Typically, there's two criteria that they use establishing the limits. One is, water quality monitoring, which may or may not have been done even with the old pouring permit. And the second one is when you provide the 5 years of previous information data, they oftentimes will look at what you've been able to achieve, and that becomes your limit, just because you've been doing it. So now this is what we're going to hold you to. So, but we can certainly ask the question if they have any guidance on what the new limits for metals and coagulant, might be. I know in Vinny's conversation with Mr. Koopman from EPA, he indicated that they were, very aware of aluminum being a concern for a lot of the facilities that are using it as a coagulant, to make sure that they're not going to be, for lack of a better term, put out of business because they've now have an aluminum limit that they can't achieve. Vinny, perhaps you could shed a little bit more, update on your conversation with Mr. Koopman specifically about aluminum.
Right. When I spoke to Mr. Koopman, he indicated that there's a lot of plants having problems with treating zinc.
Hey, Vinny, your connection's poor. I don't know if anyone else is having trouble hearing you, but
I can hear him.
Could you get off speaker and perhaps talk a little bit more clearly?
How's that?
That's better.
Okay. So Mr. Koopman said that a lot of people are having problems achieving their zinc limits. And because they're having problems achieving their zinc limits, they've been switching over to pack, which works better at removing zinc. But because they're switching to pack, they're having problems meeting aluminum limits. And as long as it's not an every month violation of aluminum limits, the EPA was looking past the every other month violations of aluminum. They weren't trying to pursue it in any way. So I got that in an email too, and I could share that with you guys so you can read it letter for letter.
Yeah, but the way you said that really doesn't make too much. So they're saying that as long as you don't violate every month, every other month's okay. I mean, is that really what he said?
That's what he said.
Well, I certainly take you at your word, Vinny. I have no problem. You don't need to send me the email. It would give me more cause to ask for the increase in aluminum than for the limit. And you know, those who are bashful do without. So why not throw it in there and ask for it, and let's see if we get it. See what they come back with, John.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I agree with you. If you I always tell even my kids, you definitely have to advocate for yourself because you're not going to be handed anything. So I have no problem doing that as part of this submittal, recognizing that, we're not at that 93 level at this point. So.
Sounds good, John. I have one other question. Going back to that compact logic processor unit that's in the SCADA units.
Yep.
Okay, that's an old unit. That's probably an 1820. And that is not non-hackable. Okay, it's very easily hackable. I'm wondering if we should go up to the 5480 processor unit in that.
I'm looking at the spec right now for what they're going to provide.
Yeah, it said it's in good working condition, not in need of upgrade, but it's very hackable, the old one. Okay, and that's probably an 1820 or earlier unit. And maybe you go up to the 5480 or one of the lower processors of the 5390 to replace it so it's Windows 10 compatible. And has its own firewall built in.
Yeah, I can certainly make that request, or as part of the proposal, you will see all of the equipment that's going to be provided and specified. So I'll have an opportunity.
I just think that's a $4,000 logic unit, but I mean, the bottom line on it is if it keeps the plant from coming down, somebody gets hacking on their little computer.
Yeah, there was actually, I don't know, Peter, you might have saw it. There was actually an advisory that was issued by AWWA just recently about a large utility that was just hacked. I can provide the commission with a copy of that notice that came out from Mass DEP as well as all of the.
That was ransomware, like what happened to the town last year or a year and a half ago now.
Yeah. So somehow they.
That's why I also, when I was talking to Peter, sorry, Peter, didn't mean to cut you off, or John, but that, even people who are out in the field who have the iPad that controls and sees the unit, there should be a two-factor authentication set up on all those situations, is what I had suggested. So that nobody can just log in and, if they break the password and then they get control of the system.
No, it's definitely of a concern in our industry, that's for sure.
It's control. It's in any industry that's anything to do with any electronics these days. So, I mean, that would be hard to set up. That could be done very, very easily so that, whoever's on call, whoever's the supervisor might actually have to be the second verification, just a thought.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're seeing, two-step verifications on almost all of our remote access, as well as our email logins, et cetera. So.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about even from the standpoint of, making it so that's two-stage, because you have employees that might leave disgruntled from either the town or from Veolia. And if you need two-factor and it has to be somebody else, then it makes it so that it's a much more clean process.
I understand.
So- Just something to add to the system while we're operating it.
Okay. All right, I wrote that down. Like I said, when the final proposal gets in draft form and submitted, I will have the the manager of the project on the call, so he'll be able to answer more of the technical aspects of it to your satisfaction.
I'm pretty sure that's built right into it, having user access only, and then you have administrators on top of that.
Yeah. Well, again,
That's true,
we'll
Vinny,
be
but
prepared
the problem is if it's not engaged, which it is not currently, that we don't have a two-factor currently. And I think that it should be two people within the company or two people like Peter and whoever the operator is.
Yeah, might be a good idea when this proposal gets drafted and submitted, that we have, just like we're almost a workshop, if you will, to make sure that all the questions and all the concerns are discussed and then addressed as part of it. So
Yeah,
I'll nominate Phil to deal with that.
Thanks.
No, that's okay. If we need an SME,
Yeah,
we need
well,
a subject matter.
Sorry, John.
No, that's quite all right. Because it's certainly not my expertise.
Well,
I can make clean water, but that's about it.
Yeah, all the logging capabilities are built into the Rockwell automation, and it just needs to be programmed when they build the new computer.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I think that basically that should be something where actually anybody who's coming in from the outside, including whoever is contracting, if they need to come in, including the supervisor who's putting this whole program together, needs somebody on either on the board or Peter to sign off on their phone to give them access at this point. That's the only way to really ensure anything in these
Right.
days.
Yep. Yeah, it's not unlike when you're looking for technical support and you have to get permission for someone to take control of your computer.
Correct.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think that would be probably an easy thing for them to write in, to have somebody like Peter have the administrative rights and add everybody else as users.
Well, I think you're going to have probably 4 or 5 people as administrative. Peter's off on vacation. You're going to have, Russ or, Paul or somebody else available to sign off on their access. In the middle of the night, you're going to have more than one.
And again, that's you, Phil. Sorry. I'm about computer savvy. This is it for me on computer savviness right here. So defer to yourself.
Computers are us. I'm sorry. I've been doing it since 1980.
Well, very good, gentlemen. So we will be hopefully receiving this proposal at our next meeting and be able to answer a lot of the questions that we have brought up this evening.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Any further must-have questions answered before gentlemen?
No,
go?
Russ, I'm just selecting you for the 2 a.m. call. That's all.
Okay, I can handle those.
So
I can receive that call and call you, Phil. But
Nice return. Thank you. I deserve that one, Russ.
So I guess.
all right, well, thank you, gentlemen. Infiltration and
think there's
inflow work
another-
next.
I think there's another agenda item for
Yep.
Veolia. With that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Paul Rodman, who is the manager of our, what we call UGAM, which is Underground Asset Management. Basically, anything underground Paul handles, to walk you through the I&I proposed work.
No. Excellent.
Good evening, everyone. Couple new faces here and names that I don't recognize from the past. So like John said, my name is Paul Rodman. I do the underground asset management for Veolia around the Northeast. A couple years ago, I came into Charlton and has been working with Peter and Steve and John, trying to get the town in compliance with their collection system and the Mass DEP regulations. See, to date, we've flow monitored the entire system, so we've checked that one off. We have a complete GIS of the entire sewer system, so we've checked that box. And now we're just working on meeting the cleaning and CCTV and other I&I infiltration and inflow analysis portions of the regulation. So I've submitted Peter a proposal to continue this year's section of cleaning camera and manholes inspections, which would basically finish off one entire flow basin from the I&I study that was completed 2 years ago, which basically consists of just over 23,000 feet of pipe cleaning and 107 manhole inspections in the area of Muggett Hill Road, Morton Station Road, Old Worcester Road.
I think we lost you there, Paul.
Oh, how about now?
I have them, Russ.
I can hear him.
Testing, testing.
Yep, I hear you, Paul.
Yeah, I got you, Paul.
Russ, can you hear us?
He's muted.
Now he is.
Should I continue?
Are you back, Russ?
Hold on, Paul.
Russ, are you back?
I'm back. Yep.
All right.
All right. Russ, where did you hear me last? Do you remember?
I do not, Paul. Sorry. You were talking about the 23,000 feet.
Yes. So this year's scope of work would be just over 23,000 feet of pipe cleaning, 107 manhole inspections, which would completely finish off the section of flow basin that was in one of the flow basins, one of the larger ones in the flow metering study completed 2 years ago. And that's Muggett Hill, Morton Station, Old Worcester Road, North Main Street, northern section of Route 20 Worcester Road, Putnam Lane, H. Putnam Lane, and the bottom section of Masonic Home Road. And that would be about the scope of the job. And then based off of that, the proposal also includes drafting up the annual report for the town to submit to Mass DEP again.
Excellent. Thank you, Paul. Is that part of our package tonight, Peter?
Yes. Yeah, this proposal is in your agenda packet that was emailed to you on Friday.
I guess I skipped over it somehow.
So again, this isn't some annual I&I work that Paul has been doing for us. I think we've been taking probably moderate sized bites of the apple and probably doing anywhere from $20,000 to $25,000 worth of work annually, and just trying to take a systematic approach to identifying where some of the problem areas are. And once we identify those areas, taking the next step, which is this, to go ahead and clean the pipe and CCTV inspect it to kind of see what's there and make sure we don't miss anything. So I think for, again, I know the $30,000 price tag is pretty high, but I think we are getting quite a bit of work done by Veolia to go ahead and do that, especially considering that cost does include the police details.
We did this last year, Pete, right?
Last year, I believe we focused on Carpenter Hill Road, correct, Paul?
Yes, we did Carpenter Hill Road, Burlingame Road, Main Street in front of Town Hall, the I would call it the backside of Masonic Hill Road, Masonic Home Road, down towards North Main Street, and Carpenter Hill. Yes.
Do you recall if you found any? I just don't remember getting a report on that. Or is that where we talked about the sunken pipe that's by the school?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so fortunately, there weren't many, I guess, defects in the report, correct, Paul? I don't think there was any corrective action from that report we needed to take.
No, that area was actually pretty solid.
Which doesn't explain the higher flows we get from Carpenter Hill Road, but I guess it does verify that it's not just from, I guess, inflow from defective pipe.
Correct.
Do you need a motion to approve this, Peter?
Yes, if you're looking to consider authorizing the work, then yes, we do. I believe we have $44,000 in our annual I&I budget line item. So we do have the funds to cover this cost. And again, I think one of the important things that Paul does is after he does all the field work, he does he creates a report for you, but he also creates the annual report to Mass DEP to fill them in on the I&I work that we've done in the past.
So, Peter, that I&I line item in our budget, is that meant for this particular job here?
Well, it's meant for this type of work.
This is something that we have to do
Okay.
on a regular basis, right, Peter?
I think it have to. Yeah, you could probably get away missing a year. I think it's a good thing to do. I think it keeps us. It's a proactive thing to do. It gives us good information and good data on what the collection system looks like. And I think if we don't do it, then I think DEP might come down. They might have issues with some other stuff that's going on. It just shows that we're proactive and we're on top of our game, operating the plant and the collection system.
So Peter, this only concludes from Richardson Corner down on Route 20. Is that correct? Active line.
This is for the sewer line. So this is for Mugget Hill Road. Again, I'm Paul.
Yeah, so this is Mugget Hill Road, Morton Station Road, Old Worcester Road, the entire thing. North Main Street from the four-way intersection all the way out to Route 20. Route 20 from, I think it was, is that a CVS right there at the corner of North Main Street and 20, all the way down to the mobile station. Putnam Lane, H. Putnam Lane, and the lower side of Masonic Home Road towards Route 20.
So the question was only current active lines, then, not.
Yes, it's only town-owned gravity lines.
Okay.
And it does include all police details.
Yes,
for
it does.
associated work.
Correct.
Yeah, the only thing I would add, Peter, is that there is a permit requirement to submit that annual report to Mass DEP. So even if you didn't do anything, you're still obligated to let them know you didn't do anything. But I do think, to your point, they expect you to be continuing to do your I&I evaluations on a routine basis.
So I'd like to put forward a motion to accept as written.
I'm sorry, what was
Yeah, I didn't catch that.
I'm sorry.
I said I would like to put forward a motion to accept as written.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, go to a roll call vote.
Mr. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Donahue,
Aye.
Mr. Cantwell,
Aye.
and Mr. Jennings.
Aye. Very good. Thank you, Paul, for putting this together and starting that work.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
We appreciate the opportunity to continue to serve you guys.
Thank you, gentlemen. And I think that concludes our business with you this evening.
Okay. Well, everybody have a great night, and I look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Paul.
And thank you for everything as far as reconsidering some of the secondary options.
All right, next on our agenda, we have Garrett here from Treehouse Breweries. Garrett, you with us?
Yes, I am. Can
Welcome.
everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Great, thank you. Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. Just wanted to, I was scheduled to be at the last meeting, but I wasn't able to make it. So thank you for having me tonight. We have a number of proposals that we are making tonight, and I believe that you all have our amendment or our proposed amendment to our MOA. I also have some data to share and to discuss with you regarding some sampling that we did to show that the anaerobic bacteria would not be passing through and passed on to the municipal plant and cause any issues to that. And I have a slight update. We have been operating our anaerobic digesters for a number of weeks now, and we are beyond 50% treated versus untreated waste leaving our property. Just last week, we were over 4,000 gallons of treated waste compared to a little over 2,000 gallons of untreated waste. So we're very happy with the results that we're seeing so far, and we're very excited to get this underway. So with that said, initially, if anybody has any questions about our progress over the past couple of months, I can field those. If not, I will get right into the MOA.
So I'm going to bring up the concept of how long we've actually been on the line. I've seen your charts go from 9:10 to 10:22, 10:15 in reality. Okay, it's a very short time frame for us to really come to a full conclusion on what you're putting out. But you've done exceptionally well in those short period of time. It looks like, you've really brought your DOD down and your TSS. But I still have some concerns that we need more data.
How much more data do you think you'd be comfortable with, Phil?
I'm talking about 6 months worth of data. Okay, quite honestly. Okay, I think before we give them any exemptions, I have no problems with going 10,000 gallons of outflow, given that the fact that their numbers initially show very, very positive. But I would like to see that, and I'd also like to know whether or not they're considering after they were talking about maybe doing a anaerobic to aerobic process after treatment, but there's been no discussion of that yet, and we never got what their bacteria content was. But I'll stick with the numbers, and the numbers look good. If they have no iron present, then I would even be more positive, because that shows that the anaerobic process is working.
Understand. Mr. Donahue, I'm not sure, maybe there's some data that didn't make it in front of you before the meeting tonight, which I can share later. But we did do some sampling to show the efficacy, or to show the viability of the biomass, of any biomass that left our plant. And we, instead of me describing it, it was kind of a lengthy process, but essentially what we ended up determining at Cambrian's lab was that with a sample taken from our sewerway before our effluent enters the municipal sewerway, after the EcoVolt reactor, we only registered 44 parts per million ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, and
yep.
This shows us that our level of biomass is extremely low. It was 0.1% of a live test that we did of the same sample that we tested.
What was the data on that test, sir?
I'm sorry?
What was the date on that test?
These were done, I don't have that in front of me right now. These were done in the month of October. I would have to look back and see. I'm sorry, they were done in September. I'd have to look back and see this.
Yeah, they weren't
I don't
presented
know.
to the board, so I have some concerns about
Well,
that.
Mr. Donahue,
Yes,
I forwarded an email from Garrett, which I believe is what he's referencing from Jen Huang from Cambrian.
yeah,
So the data that he's referencing is just from this chart, correct, Garrett? Because this is all I
Yes.
have for data, and I forwarded this email to the board. So I think what Mr. Donahue is asking for is something beyond what's in this email, correct?
correct.
So we do have this information, Garrett. It's just not adequate.
Okay. Is it simply a sampling process, or is this should we do?
It's
should we
a
rewrite
length
the
of
protocol?
time issue, sir. It's getting data for more than 2 months. It's getting data for 6 months out. You're asking for a request to go back to July 1 of last year. And based on what we see, I have some concerns. Number one, giving anybody a differentiation, and especially when doing as well as you're doing in reducing the cost for BOD, which you're asking for. I think if you're doing that good of a job, your costs are just going to go down anyways. If you go past that monthly rate, then I think that, the current rate is where we should be at. And I have no problems with giving 10,000 gallons, because I think that's what we need to do in town. We need to be business friendly.
Understand. Is once we have more data, is this something that the board is still willing to consider at any point, or because essentially we would need to adapt our plan? And at this point, Mr. Donahue, you did ask earlier whether or not we plan on following this process with an aerobic process. That is still to be determined based on this pilot stage. So we're certainly not saying that this is, the data that we've collected so far is what we're relying on from an engineering standpoint. What we're saying is that we're comfortable and we're confident that we're not going to have any negative effect on the sewer plant. So while I understand that these are kind of two different points now, we're not ready to grant the second request of the lower surcharge, but you are willing to grant the additional flow.
So I think that's a great idea, given what you currently come out with. It's showing one thing that's perfect. The only thing that I want to make sure is that we don't end up with your reactor going down, and then you have the 10,000 gallons per day. And if so, we're in a situation where we're going to end up with a lot of additional BOD and also some other issues that are going to affect the plant.
So here's my thoughts on the matter. I agree with Phil on the BOD part of the process here. I don't think that we should change the surcharge anymore. It's been 3.5 years. It's kind of the reason you guys put that whole system in. And as far as an extra 2,500 gallons for me, I'd like to see a 6-month trial. I want to know what that extra 2,500 gallons is going to do to our system before we grant it to you guys, because I feel like if we grant it to you, we can't go backwards and ungrant it.
Understand.
So I'd like to see a 6-month trial period to see what it does to our system. And then revisit this in 6 months. Because like I said, it's hard to grant you the 10,000 and then go backwards.
Just as a thought, I don't think there's a problem giving them the 10,000 as long as they're paying the current user fees that they're paying for the TSS and the BOD.
In past conversations, Garrett, you said that you would be ramping up to that additional 2,500, not even really get to the peak of it anytime soon. Is that accurate for a statement? So that if we give you a 6-month trial period, you might not really show us how effectively the plant's going to handle it, because we might not receive that much flow from you.
That's very true, Mr. Jennings. In fact, I'll tell you that we will not be at 10,000 gallons by January. I can promise that. We're requesting the additional flow so we can grow into this. And yes, 6 months, I do not forecast that we'll be at 10,000 gallons per day in 6 months. I don't think we'll be there yet.
Wait, be at 9,000?
I can't put a hard number on it. I just know that well, as of right now, we already crest and sometimes go over 7,500 per day on average. And beyond saying anything under 10,000 gallons per day, I can't project any closer than that. Hence why we're asking for raise to 10,000.
And Garrett, do you know how many gallons a week are being trucked off property now, currently?
Yes. Anywhere between 3,000 and 9,000 per week. Generally 3 or 6, sometimes 9.
So, Mr. Chair,
So
Yes, Peter.
just to I just have a couple questions for Garrett, if you don't mind.
Please.
Looking at the chart for your weekly readings, we only have results from EcoVolt Reactor A. Has Reactor A been offline?
We have some revisions to make to this chart, including the last 2 weeks flow meter reading or volume readings for the reactors. I'm working on that with McClure right now. That's not completely accurate, Peter. Some of those weeks that should be called EcoVolt Reactor A. Only one EcoVolt reactor runs at a time.
Okay.
It's only one is capable of discharging at a time, I should say. That's a better way to put it, Peter. Only one is capable of running at one time.
All right, so this data is from EcoVolt. It's from both, either A or B, whichever one you're running that week as part of the pilot.
That is correct. And
Okay.
we intend, and we always intended to run the two of them in conjunction with one another and have it more or less not be discernible that is our pilot phase. And from there we would determine how we build phase 2's tank. So they are performing more or less the same.
So, Mr. Chair, as far as the additional capacity goes, their average, if you take it on a weekly basis, they like Garrett said, they crest over 7,500 gallons per day average on a weekly basis, probably. I'm going to say 50% of the time over the last 4 to 6 months. So if you average it out over 6 months, the average might be 7,500 gallons per day. But I think we should, I agree with Mr. Cantwell's concern of giving them the 10,000 gallons per day. And then all of a sudden we see that it's having an adverse effect, especially if the EcoVolt reactors don't necessarily work as well as they should. And we start getting, more flow at the stronger concentration. So I think a 6 month trial period per se, without us assessing the fee at this time, would be good for all of us. It gives Treehouse more time to get the EcoVolt reactors dialed in. It gives us more time to review that data, and it also gives us time to see how that 10,000 gallons per day affects the plant. So if they're doing, say they're doing 6,000 gallons average a week trucked off site, that's almost an additional 1,000 gallons per day. So right there, we're going to be up to 8,500 gallons per day on average. If they up their production, we're going to be cresting 9,500 gallons per day anyway. So I think the numbers will grow. The numbers will get close to that 10,000 sooner than we think.
So Garrett, I'm assuming if we were to approve the more gallons, you'd stop trucking it off site. Is that what you would probably do right away?
That
is
is
where that those gallons would be coming from, the stuff that you're trucking off site?
That is correct. We will stop trucking off site. And we will increase our production.
So, and Garrett, as we discussed, the EcoVolt reactors are doing good now. I'm going to say, they're not near design flow, but as they get closer to design flow of 4,000 to 5,000 gallons per day, the removal rate won't be as high, correct?
We do, Cambrian does expect the removal rate not to do as well as we get to full load. But I can't see those numbers yet. I can't really tell if that's what's going to be, Peter. As Mr. Donahue said earlier, it's just not enough data yet.
Right.
And that's why we really won't know until we're later on into next spring. So no, unfortunately we don't.
So I just wanted to let the commission know that the numbers we see now are good, but as you increase, again, especially during this pilot phase, as you increase flow through these reactors, the concentration is going to increase as well.
Do you have any issue with the trial stage, Garrett?
Absolutely not. In fact, in a way, it's valuable to us too, because it protects us on the back end. We also have our phase 2 build out that will be coming right around the corner of summer 2021. So I understand that this is a risk, and that I'm certainly not against it. If anything, I would actually just propose that it would be longer, because I don't know, I don't want to say 6 months now, and then I suppose we could just extend it after that.
So let me ask you this, Gary. If we give you a year, will you stop trucking off site immediately?
Yes.
Yes. All right.
Regardless of what the time frame is, Mr. Canwell, we will stop trucking off site immediately.
So can I just suggest in there that, question, can you bring A and B on at the same time if necessary?
No, we cannot. It's not the system is not designed to run both at the same time and to increase flow. You can only discharge from one at a time.
In the future, if you needed to, could that be adapted to that situation? And how long would that take you?
In the future, there isn't. In the future, for phase 2, there isn't a plan to have 2. There's only a plan to have 1, and
correct.
That would handle 100% of the flow at that point. And the only reason there's 2 right. I'm sorry.
And what's the flow rate capacity?
We haven't even sized that yet, but we're projecting somewhere around 30,000 gallons per day.
Well, within the capacity. Can I suggest, that we give them a year, okay, as put out there, because I think they need time to develop. They've put the money into it, and they at least deserve that much, given their infrastructure and also the amount of money to put into the situation. But I do not believe we should give them any rate and reduction of the BOD and so forth.
I agree.
Okay.
I like the direction. I think that if we were to do a 6-month trial period, and we wanted to extend it out to a year afterwards, I don't think we have any issue doing that. I don't want to get to the 6-month period and say, oh, I wish that we had just given them 6 months if we had initially said 1 year. So I'd be more in favor of saying, let's start with the shorter trial, knowing that we can extend it out if we want to. Collect the data. Garrett, I'm sure that he'll be forthcoming with updates at our monthly meetings, so we can check the progress as it goes. And if we have to make changes to it along the way, we will. And if we have to extend it out for another 6 months, let's do so at that point in time. But I definitely would be in favor of that shorter period than the longer one. That's just
Understand completely.
The only concern I have with that is that, you've got a business that's dependent upon a flow rate and not trucking off site. They increase their output, and then we get in a situation where we're shutting them back down and they don't have that flow rate anymore. I think you should at least split it in the middle and make it 8 months.
Well, I think part of this comes on the financial side of the equation for me, Phil, and
Yep.
to say honestly, if things are rolling along good, let's finalize this agreement and let's get it in place. I think that 6 months is extending it out, and we're continuing to be very business friendly in our arrangement, and I think that's this board has always been very business friendly, but we're also very frugal, and maintaining both of those positions. I think that having the opportunity 6 months in to say, hey guys, let's modify this a little bit would be in favor of our original intentions.
Russ, I'm not sure, but I disagree with that. I think the year would have actually been better because the bottom line is that their numbers are producing the right direction. And I've been one of the biggest oppositions to anaerobic bacteria coming in, but looking at the numbers, looking at what they're doing, looking what they're trying to do. And the only thing I would ask for them is that they look into the anaerobic to aerobic as a possibility within that year if we give it to them. Okay, and I think that post-treatment, if they go high, that we do this contingent on that if numbers start showing high, they do to grow, agree to go to an anaerobic to aerobic situation. If not, we get to revisit it. And I think we should revisit it in 6 months, yes, if the numbers show, but I think we should give them a year as a least base. You got to go out that far if you're a company that size.
Dave?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I go either way. Garrett, how much more information do you think we'd have in the year than 6 months? I mean, you think we'd have all the information in the year?
I mean, I certainly don't, gentlemen, I certainly don't mind coming back in 6 months. I mean, I project that I'll probably be at a meeting before that anyhow. So the conversation will go on. As far as the trial, it doesn't, at this point, I think that we're fine with the 6 month trial at the 10,000 gallon limit. I would be more concerned and more interested in knowing whether or not we're going to be able to continue the conversation about a reduced surcharge rate. And while I understand that right now that's too much of an ask or not something that the board is willing to do. So if that's the case, whatever the trial period is that you guys want to propose, we're fine with, as long as we can effectively increase our rate right now so we can continue to grow and continue to test this plant.
Garrett, do you think that after the year, the ask might be bigger than just 10,000 gallons per day?
Yes, I do.
So if we were to do this, if it were to be, what about after 6 months? Do you think
I'm sorry. Are you asking me, Peter, if I do believe that within 2 years we'll be requesting another increase?
Okay, but not within 1 year.
No.
Okay.
I'd have to, speaking on the reduced rate, Garrett, last time you were in, I posed the question to you. If a taxpayer came up and asked me why would Treehouse be eligible for a discount, what is my answer to them?
Well, in my opinion, Mr. Jennings, I would say Treehouse feels that we have gone above and beyond from an environmental standpoint and from a member of the town standpoint to protect the municipal sewer system. I'm unaware if there's any other private wastewater treatment plants in the town. But if there is, I can assure you that it's not as cutting edge. It's not as thoughtful as ours is. Likewise, we go above and beyond in many other aspects of our business. So if the taxpayer understood the implications that it had, I think that they would understand that for a business like us, it was a valuable thing. I think that the taxpayer would have to understand how much it meant, because to know that a business is more or less getting a discount when they understood what our flow was and what we're contesting with before it leaves our property, I think would shine some light on them and let them consider the fact that our wastewater, needs that type of equipment, and we did go get it. If I could put it another way, Mr. Jennings, I would say, if anyone in town knew that, a brewery our size could not exist in Charlton without that. I think we all know that at this point, and small breweries exist all over the place. They generally don't even register on sewer plants. So we feel very passionately that we've done everything in our power to treat this wastewater appropriately, and that there are just far too many other instances in town that that's not the case.
Mr. Chair?
Sure. Yes, go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, my bottom line on that is, okay, their treatment plant is saving the money by reducing their BOD and also their TSS and their ammonia, which we surcharge for, and therefore, why would we give anybody a break, okay, based on the fact that they've added a treatment plant, which is wonderful, okay, because it will help the town. But why would we give them that when we're going to give them a reduced rate just on the fact that they have reduced their costs by putting it in?
We have given them a break. We've given them a 3.5-year break.
I'm not disagreeing with either of you guys, and I wanted to pose the question to Garrett to hear what he could tell me. I do believe that they're a great business, and they're making every stride forward that they should be making as a good business to protect the town that they do business in, and they have to make those strides to be a good business and stay in town. It's all true, and it's self-serving. And again, I applaud Garrett as well, because like we discussed earlier in the meeting, those who are bashful do without. And if you don't ask for it, you don't get it. And you've gotten a discount for 3.5 years, as Dave has stated. And I think that's helped in the situation. Can we continue with the discount? I'm not so sure at this point in time that I'd be in favor of that myself, because I think that we have done what we could do to help a new business put its foot forward. And now it's time to stand on your own and move forward.
I concur. The one thing I would suggest is we give them a year, that they have to tell us immediately if their treatment plant goes down. That's the only thing that I would require of them if we give them a year.
Jack or Paul, do you guys have anything to add? Any questions on this?
Well, I do remember when they first came to us 4 or 5 years ago, and our thoughts were we're going to give them the discount and review that they were doing something about it to reduce their figures. Well, as Garrett said, they've gone above and beyond. And so in that respect, I don't find any problem. Even if you want to extend the discount, I'd still be in favor of that somewhat, because of what they are doing. If they were doing absolutely nothing, then I'd say that's it, the discount's over. But we're giving them the discount, lets them free up a few dollars that they're not squandering on something else. They're putting it into their system. I'm in favor of that. And as far as what I'm speaking here, the 6 month or a year goes, I'm in favor of either one. Whatever Garrett wants would be fine with me, or whatever the board wants. I don't have a preference on that either.
All right. Well, I guess we'll propose a motion on this. And if someone would like to make one.
I'd like to propose that they have a 1 year extension for 10,000 gallons per day. And that they must, as per that agreement, let us know if the treatment plant goes down at any time, and that should go to Peter.
I'd second that.
So just to amend that slightly, it would be an increased flow to 10,000 gallons?
Increased flow to 10,000 gallons. If their treatment plant goes offline, that they notify us immediately, so then we can see what the actual situation is that goes on with our treatment plant. whether it makes a major difference or not. So that would be that if they go down for a day, they let us know immediately.
Understood.
So, would that will be an amendment to the MOU. So do you want to have the motion to approve pending legal review?
I don't think legal review is necessary on that one. I think that we can give them 10,000 with them agreeing to just say they will notify us within 24 hours of their treatment plant going down and for what period of time it has gone down for.
Okay, so do you want Garrett to draft language for that? It'll be a second amendment to our initial agreement that will just increase to 10,000 gallons per day for a 1-year trial period.
I don't think they need to draft another legal agreement. I think we can just put it into motion and accept it.
I don't think that, does that affect our agreement? If we just make the motion to temporarily increase it for a year?
With that addendum.
Yeah, and then next year, after the year, then it would change the agreement.
Correct.
Peter?
I think it all comes down to what everyone's comfortable with. And as long as nothing crazy happens, there won't be a problem. So, I mean, Garrett, if you guys are comfortable with that, then we will.
Peter, we would certainly be comfortable with that.
All right, then yeah, that means if it passes tonight, it'll be in effect and you guys can go up to 10,000 gallons per day tomorrow. We'll start, Sue will track it as if the motion's approved, and we'll start the 1-year trial tomorrow.
So 1-year trial, Peter, with no privilege fee?
Correct.
So,
And again, that's partially why I'm saying I'd be more in favor of the 6 months, because when it comes down to it, the fee is what, $102,000? What is the fee?
Yes.
Yeah, it's 100. It works out to 102,500.
So 6 months is $51,000. We just had 2 major repairs in town that were on our agenda this evening, and that's $51,000. So that's why I say on the frugal side of things, and not to, spotlight you guys, Garrett, unfortunately, but that's the way it is. And to say 6 months from now, we might want to say, hey, it's things are going good. Let's formalize this. And, I still think we're being very business friendly by saying, okay, we're going to extend this out 6 months.
I still say 1 year, and I say that if they're willing to pay the user fee for the 1 year, then the only clause that has to be added in there is that should the plant go down for an extended period of time, that the board gets to look at, the situation.
So what if we can do some deal where we split the difference with Treehouse, and we said, what if we assessed a half a year's fee for a 1 year trial period?
I think that would be a very smart idea, because it basically gives them the break of $50,000 on the situation, with the payment of $50,000 upon extension of 10,000 gallons per day. And I would say that would be not over 20 years. It's a payment period.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Russ. It's a perfect idea. I like that idea.
Mr. Chair?
Please, Peter.
For me, the whole reason for not charging them is we can always take it away. Once you charge them, it's something that we can't really take back. So I think once we assess them a privilege fee, it's based on gallons per day, not time frame. And once you move forward, you're going to want to memorialize that as part of the MOA. That won't just be a motion by the board to assess that amount of money and have it move forward. You'll want to use the language that he's provided to make sure it's clear in our agreement that you're allowing them to go up to 10,000 gallons per day in perpetuity in exchange for the 102 $102,500. So
So, Peter, to Garrett, how do you feel about that one as far as putting out $102,000 for 1 year? Guaranteed.
It's not going to be just for 1 year.
Well, to be honest with you guys, I would have to bring this conversation back to the owners anyway. And if what we're considering right now, I kind of have to say that I'm with Mr. Boria. I don't think that we'd be willing to agree to anything that we would pay up front that wasn't structured that way, especially if it meant that we were on a trial period. So I don't think that I follow that train of thought. I think if it's a trial, then we would have to be able to, we would not be able to pay for any of it.
Question, Peter.
Are we going to get would we get our money back if we determine that we didn't?
That's another issue there that I'm going to ask Peter. Peter, what's the number of years that they get to pay over on that 102,000?
it depends what they elect. When the assessors send out the privilege fee, the actual invoice, they get to elect whether it's paid up front over 5, 10, or 20 years.
So if
Guys,
they
let's,
agree,
let's,
so if they
let's
agree-
just keep it simple, Phil. And again, why not say, Garrett said they'd be fine with either the 6 months or 1 year. And let's just do it for 6 months. And then if everybody's passionate about going in one direction or the other, let's do that. And if we have to get creative and sit around, maybe Garrett can help us with some ideas at that point in time if it's not crystal clear on which way to go.
well, I see Garrett being put in the position where he's going to be putting out $50,000 either up front or over 5 years, and with no guarantee that we're going to continue the 10,000 gallons.
Well, no,
And,
I don't think there's any question about that. If in my mind we'd continue the 10,000 gallons, no problem. It's just a question of what comes into the plant. And if everybody's as confident as they are, there should be no issue 6 months from now with that determination.
Yeah, but then we have no surcharge, we have no charge on that 10,000 gallons if we're just giving them as a preliminary 6 months. If we give them a year and we come to an agreement with them that they pay half of it up front and then they meet the requirements, then fine.
So here's a quick thought: is why don't we approve them for I know that they're asking for 2,500 gallons, but why don't we approve them for an extra 1,250 gallons, half of what they're looking for, charge them the $51,000 or whatever it is, and then in 6 months from now they can come back and ask us for another 1,250 gallons, and we'll see what this 1,250 that they're giving us does to our plant.
So we give them that in perpetuity.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Peter.
The whole reason I'm in favor of the motion that's on the floor is because it gives us the ability to see how the additional usage affects the plant. And if we need to say, no, it's adversely affecting the plant, then we can say, look, we need to scale that back. This is what's happening. Work with Treehouse, work with Cambrian, and figure out what's happening based on their flows and their loads. That's why this trial period, I think, is beneficial.
So is it 6 months or 1 year in your estimation?
That to me, I'm not hung up on either one. So,
Well, what would be your recommendation?
I would do 6 months with a possible 6 month renewal if we need more data.
Phil, do you have a problem with that?
I can live with that. I'm just wondering how that surcharge is going to affect them and how they're going to be willing to approach that.
I think the surcharge is a completely different discussion. And as we get more data and we can kind of see what we're seeing for concentrations from their pre-treatment system, I think everything that was said today as far as the surcharge stuff, it was spot on, and I agree with. I'm not sure that's something we want to entertain. I understand that Treehouse has invested a lot of money in that pre-treatment system, but they've done it. They've done it for two reasons. They've done it because they want to be, a good neighbor, a good citizen, but they've also done it because it's going to save them money on our surcharges. So, I think it works well for both of us to keep the surcharges where they are for now, and I think that's a separate independent discussion.
I'm not talking about that surcharge. I'm talking about the additional flow rate.
The
surcharge.
Privilege fee?
The privilege fee.
Yeah, the privilege fee is a very formal process that has to be done through the MOA, and we can do that after the trial period is over. I think doing part of it up front really handcuffs us, and I think it handcuffs Treehouse to tying us into something. If we're gonna charge them anything, it has to be formal. It has to be as part of the MOA, and it has to be in perpetuity.
Okay.
I like to split the difference, which is just do the MOA for the additional, would it be 1750 gallons? And that would take care of them through the next 6 months from what they're asking for. Give them that in perpetuity and do the privilege fee and move forward.
So there's already a motion on the floor, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Correct.
Yes. So just
There's a motion and a second.
motion.
I believe the motion was to increase the daily flow to 10,000 gallons per day for a trial period of 1 year, and to notify the water sewer department immediately if the pre-treatment system goes down.
All right.
Correct?
So,
Correct? Is that close enough, Phil?
Yes.
That's what I have.
Okay.
So if we could modify that with 6 months and a 6-month reevaluation period.
That would be my recommendation. I think that's fair for everyone.
Okay, then go for it.
Garrett, do you have any objections to that?
No, I don't.
Dave,
I'm good.
you're in favor of that?
Yeah. So can someone make a motion to amend the time frame from 12 months to 6 months with a possible 6-month option? Or
Since I
6-month
made the
extension?
initial motion, I will make the motion 6 months.
With the 6-month reevaluation.
And also the understanding if the treatment plant goes down, that they notify us within 24 hours, and for how long.
I second.
Excellent. Okay, any further discussion on this?
Not for me, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
All right, well, I guess we'll put that to a vote then.
All right, Mr. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Cantwell,
Aye.
Mr. Donahue,
Aye.
Mr. Jennings.
Aye.
All right, motion passes unanimously. All right, Garrett, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for waiting.
Yep, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Garrett.
Bye.
Thank you, Russ, Peter, for your clarity.
Oh, no problem. All right. Next, Peter, we have the sewer privilege fee.
Yes, at our last meeting, we discussed adopting the sewer privilege fee policy. Phil had some additions to add, so the amended sewer privilege fee policy is attached with the changes in red.
Yep. And this is what we discussed last time, and we said that you would get with Phil and make the noted changes.
Yes, yes.
So-
So Phil sent me an email. I went over it with him and kind of put this together, and I believe it pretty much covers what was discussed. And I think it covers all the changes you wanted to make, correct, Phil?
Correct. I just was concerned that new users, new homeowners are getting a break based on an old fee, whereas the original owners should get the break.
Yep. Very good. Do we need to vote on this, Peter?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So would someone like to make a motion?
Motion to accept as written.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Mr. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Cantwell,
Aye.
Mr. Donahue,
Aye.
and Mr. Jennings.
Aye. Very good. All right, next we have the water and sewer construction standards.
Yeah,
We had discussed this a few meetings ago. I wanted a little more time to review it. I have no further questions or problems with it. Does anyone else have any questions or concerns?
Do not.
Okay, so we'll entertain a motion on this to accept this policy. Is that what you want, Peter?
yes, definitely.
Peter,
Mr.
were
Rid-
you comfortable with the languages of inspector? That's all I ask.
Yes, yep, those
Yep.
are, that's included. So, no, I think that clarifies it.
And Phil is listed as that go-to person on there if no one can be reached.
Ouch. Russ, you got even.
Anyone like to make that motion?
Motion to accept as written.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's go to a roll call vote.
Mr. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Cantwell,
Aye.
Mr. Donahue,
Aye.
Mr. Jennings.
Aye. All right, next, Stevens Park Road Pump Station. Wanna fill us in on that, Peter?
Yes, just following up and kind of closing the chapter here, the pump station repairs have been completed. Just provided some before and after photos of the work that was done so you can kind of see what took place. Definitely, I think we definitely a little proactive and definitely avoided not a disaster, but definitely some circumstances that wouldn't have been fun to deal with if it wasn't done in an emergency situation. So
Oh, especially when it would have happened. It would have happened in the middle of the winter, and
yeah,
it would have been, it would have been a disaster right next to that little stream. And
Yeah.
so it's definitely good to have that all situated back to what it should be and ready to take the load.
yes. Yep, so that was all just more informational purposes. So I'll close in the book.
Excellent. All right. Next, site plan, Buffinville project.
Yes, so Beta has submitted the site plan for the Buffinville Public Water Supply to the planning board. We are tentatively scheduled for their meeting on December 2nd. And they have also submitted a notice of intent to conservation, and we're waiting for their meeting date to be determined.
Excellent.
So the certified letters have been mailed out from conservation. Sue and I will reach out to the local homeowners in that area who have been involved in this project and let them know of these dates so to be sure that they're aware of what's taking place.
Thank you for doing so. Next, water line construction update.
Yeah, so there's really not a lot of different stuff going on, just more of the same. So Albany's is still working to finalize the installation up at the Bay Path Pump Station. Everyone's there. Everything is there. Hopefully it'll be coming online soon. And they have probably three crews working daily doing the service connections on Old Worcester Road. So they're definitely trying to make some progress there and get those service connections run into the basements so they can try and get that water line activated sooner than later and then start to connect those homes inside. So things are moving forward.
Excellent. All right. So what else do you have for us, Peter? Anything?
That's it.
Seems too good to be true.
Almost.
I've got a question for Peter. We had these bills from Pioppi to pay, and that was concerning water. I'm just wondering what account are we going to take that out of? You mentioned Treehouse paying, the 51,000 that would go toward it. That was hypothetical at the time, but to me that would be altogether two different accounts. And I just kind of want clarification from Peter how we're going to pay the Pioppi bills.
So fortunately, the Pioppi invoices were in before special town meeting, so we were able to go to special town meeting and we transferred funds from the water stabilization account to pay for these repairs. So
It has that much.
the water stabilization account has, yes, it has quite a bit, actually.
Okay.
And at that point in time, when we voted on that, we specifically said that we were allocating the money but not spending it until we specifically voted on that as we did this evening.
Okay.
So the funds are there. The funds were transferred there for this work from the water stabilization fund. So that's all I have, Mr. Jennings.
So it sounds like we've got it all.
Yep. No, I think we're done. Did we lose Russ again?
Sounds like it.
Do you have a date for our next meeting?
Yes, November 23rd. Be the Monday before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Hopefully-
Why that soon, Peter?
So we can hopefully get the SCADA work in and get the SCADA proposal from John and get that approved so we can get that moving forward.
Okay. The only other thing I wanted to bring up was that you, Russ, and I met, and basically we came up with, if I understand, that we should just continue forward with what we were already doing.
For the
As far as
consecutive water.
as far as consecutive water and also looking for other sources in the town. Is Russ there?
You might be back now. Are you back, Russ? Okay, well, there's still 4 of you here. I believe Mr. Cantwell is the vice chair. So if someone wants to make a motion, Dave can just close this out.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
All right, hearing that motion, all in favor?
Was there a second?
Oh,
We
second.
need a
sorry.
second.
Can I get a second?
Donahue, second.
All right, Peter, roll call.
All right, Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. Donahue,
Aye.
and Mr. Cantwell.
Aye.
All right. Meeting is adjourned at 8:38.
Gentlemen, have a great night.
Thank you,
Wait,
everyone.
what about invoices tomorrow? Can you stop by?
Yep.
What time?
Anytime after 7 a.m.
Intel.
Peter, you'll be in tomorrow at that time.
Yes.
I have something I observed that might be a little concern for INI, and I'll just don't let me forget to tell you about it. That's all.
Okay.
Okay.
It's an open manhole, kind of half open, so it should not go unprocessed. So,
Okay.
okay. Good night, all.
Sounds good. Thank you. Have a nice night, everybody.
Good night.